I know. All right. I want to thank all of you for coming out, this huge room of people for coming out to the media panel. You guys are fantastic. I would also like to make note that Brian Fiore down here is ready to field any questions that you might have for the media panel. He's going to grab this microphone over here and run up to you if you have any questions. He's also going to be looking on the internet, and if anybody has any questions, we're going to field those too. We have to cut this a little bit short. The last panel ran a little bit long, and obviously we like to take our time getting up to the stage as well. So I'm going to get started by asking Suze Sheldon to introduce everyone here on the panel.
Well, starting from the right, we've got Robert Geislinger. And then next up we've got Cory Booker.
Oh,
Cory Booker Goff.
he's going to change it.
I know last names, I got first names, I know that one. And then we've got, what's your name again?
Oh,
You look
yeah.
familiar. Cheesy, no. Crystal Lozano.
This is Suze Sheldon.
Tiffany
Saunders.
Saunders. And then Anne.
Funny Italian last names.
Oh, gosh. I can't remember.
Lucida.
Well, Anne Lucida.
And Brad Scaggs.
Brad.
Patrick, did you prepare her for this? No, I want to wait. I made the cards.
Very professional.
And speaking of, Robert, have you ever been asked to retract or not publish a review, comment, or statement by a publisher or creator?
No. And if I was asked, I would respond with no.
Just the simple word no.
No.
So what about the rest of you? Cory? Has that ever come up? And if so, how do you think you would handle it?
I haven't had it come up. I basically have had a review done that was asked, hey, you should share it. And I was like, I don't know, after reading the review, it was kind of like, I don't think so, but thank you.
Right, yeah. I'm not spreading bad propaganda.
I would agree with Robert. I wouldn't pull it. Because, it's my opinion. So,
And it was awkward because I said no.
it was awkward.
Crystal?
I've never been asked to retract anything. I think the only instance in which I would is if I had made a mistake. If I had made a mistake that changed the tone of the review in a significant way. Like obviously you can annotate videos on YouTube or you can publish statements after the fact. So if I had made a significant error, that would be the only instance in which I would probably be willing to retract something, but I've never been asked.
Does anybody else want any input? Because if not, I'm going to field a different question to the side. No? No one else? Has no one else had a bad incident? I'm the only one? Constantly, people ask me to retract stuff, constantly.
I just think it's really unethical. I think that the agreement between the publisher and whether they're providing a review copy or not, it's unethical to ask them to change negative comments or withhold negative comments. They have to understand that they're handing that over with understanding that you're giving an honest opinion. Otherwise, your value as a reviewer, your credibility, as your ethical value, your integrity as a reviewer is totally moot. And publishers, if they're not comfortable with that, they shouldn't do that, or they should provide finances to do a paid preview without the opinion piece of a reviewer if they're concerned about a certain presentation of the product.
That's a great and very valid point. What if a publisher saw your review and then asked you to retract it and offered you payment for a preview instead?
Oh, there'd be a lot of back channel chatter about that one. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody talks, and I mean, that's completely unethical. But to be fair, I mean, have you encountered that? Because I have not personally heard of that, and I would expect, at least from larger, more experienced publishers, you would never see that happen. But with so many smaller publishers coming up and kind of hungry for media attention and people to cover their product, you never know.
I
I have, in
publishers
fact.
would rather
Wow.
choose to, and I think Cory made a point about it maybe before we were talking, that you'll get multiple reviews from multiple sources. You gotta get your game out there, and you will push the reviews that you prefer and kind of put the other ones to the side. I mean, fortunately for me, we do live streaming, so anything that I do is going to be open on, there's no opportunity for a publisher to ask me to, could you not publish it? Well, it's already been streamed for the past 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, if it tanks, if a rule's broken and you guys are live streaming, it's out there. It's naked.
You gotta get real creative.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Suze, how do you deal with games that you don't enjoy? And I know that this has happened to you.
Yeah, and you just have to be honest about it. I think it depends on the context. I only have so much time, and I think that it's one thing that a lot of people who cover board games gets is I think there's just broad criticism or concern that so many people who produce content are very positive, but I think that the standard rebuttal to that is very true. It's because you choose to invest your time in the games you enjoy. It's awful to sit there and play a game, oh, I didn't like this, oh, now I've got to play it again, and now I've got to play it again to publish a fair, like, no. I mean, I'm not going to invest that additional time when I have other options. I think it's a matter of being honest, and I may be pushing a different product that I enjoy more, because there's so many great, fun games, but if asked, what did you think about this game? I'm going to say it wasn't for me, or this is what I liked, but these are the things I didn't like about it, and just try to provide perspectives, because Lord knows what I like, other people detest, and what I detest, other people really enjoy. And so all I can do is try to present multiple, like my opinion based on multiple facets of the experience.
A fair and balanced evaluation.
I would never, ever use those words.
Fair and balanced evaluation?
No.
Oh,
Susan, I know what you're talking about. I wouldn't either.
an unfair and unbalanced evaluation. Tiffany,
So, I think that for me, you can always find positives and negatives in anything. So I think it's really, like it's fair, I think, to focus to share the positives and to share the negatives. I will also really highlight when the negatives are more of a preference. It's my personal bias as opposed to something fundamentally wrong with the game. So I really try to focus on that, and I'll say, well, I just really don't like this kind of game or this mechanism within a game, and so that's why I didn't really enjoy this experience. But if you like that, this may definitely be for you. I think that that's really an important component. I think when it comes to things like it's broken, something is unbalanced, or there's just a fundamental flaw in the game, I think that's really good feedback for the designer and for the publisher. And I think that to share that opinion isn't wrong. That's why we do what we do. But you can do it in a nice way, and you can be kind about it when you do it, but you can be honest too.
thank you. And I don't want to put a little twist on yours. Twist? You like that? Have you ever had to fake enjoying it while you're streaming it live? Like,
Thanks for coming, guys. I'm out.
All right, now I'm not.
that's a valid question. I mean, you're streaming it live. You are playing it right then and there, probably for the first time.
So we host a weekly show called our Spotlight Show, where we do a playthrough of the game and a first impression. And I'm really fortunate to be a part of a team. So I have two other people who are on there with me. And when I come on the show, this is the first time I've seen the game. And we do it intentionally so that when our audience is watching our videos, they can see how easy is this for game to be picked up right out of the box from this person. So if I don't like a game, or if it's difficult for me to pick up, our audience doesn't need to necessarily associate themselves with me. There's two other people on stream, live on stream, with two very different likes. It's the same things that we were talking about. Everybody's got their own things that draw to them, and that also gives me a little bit more freedom to be very honest about how I feel. There was a game recently that I didn't enjoy because it was very fast-paced grab. I'm somebody who has attention deficit disorder. This game is not my kind of game, and I can sit there and feel comfortable about saying that because if you're not like me, maybe you can, associate with one of the two other people on stream.
Brad?
So we buy all the games that we get, well, for the most part, and I feel like that gives us the opportunity to be brutally honest on the games. So if a game comes across that when we play, we're actually more likely to talk about it if it's at one of the far extremes instead of so much in the middle. So if we really don't like it, you're probably going to hear quite a bit about it. The stuff in the middle of the road, we don't really focus on as much because that's not as entertaining, I guess. And we kind of focus on those extremes. And when we actually go out and buy it and we've spent our money on it, we feel like we can actually talk and give our opinion on games that weren't that great.
Great. Thank you very, very much. Robert, can I ask you a question?
I want to answer that question.
I'm nervous for the question. Please, by all means.
I love reviewing games I don't enjoy.
Oh, I know you do.
I really, legitimately love reviewing games I don't enjoy. I actually seek them out. Like, I will play a game with other people and realize I like nothing about this game, and I will immediately go and buy that game just so I can review it. This came out of the fact that I originally targeted games that had no reviews. That was my original target, was I would look for games that had 0 reviews. Well, there's a reason a lot of games have 0 reviews. It's because people didn't want to review them because they were bad. I love reviewing those games.
Well, there's value in putting out a review because then people are going to seek out information about it, and if you're the one that's putting out that information, then there's value there.
Exactly.
And thank you for doing that, so the rest of us don't have to.
I, in fact, have a box of games no one wants to review right now that Tom brought me.
Did you?
And I'm looking forward to the whole box.
Did you want to name names? Some games that you didn't review? Please don't. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Does anyone out in the audience have a question? Anyone in this vast expanse of people? Brian. See if I get the microphone out here. Sure. Everybody, Brian Fiore.
My question, I was hoping you could expand on that. Why do you like reviewing games that you don't enjoy?
So it's really easy to get pumped out about a game that you love. And the thing is it's harder to get pumped up and as Tiffany was saying earlier, there's positives and negatives to any game. Even a really poorly designed game, there's got to be something. And something I've said before is, if a game gets published, somebody likes that game. There is somebody out there who thought that was a good game. And even if I personally find no value in that box, there might be somebody who does. So A, it'll allow, as you were saying, other people won't review it, so you can find information, but it will allow me hopefully to reach people who might actually enjoy this game, which is why at the end of most of my reviews, I always state, my opinion on whether or not this game is going to stay in my collection, but it might be right for you and your game group. So again, it's just the fact that those games that we all love, they get hyped up so much and so many people review them that's simple. You find those games that are not getting attention, they're bad games, they're just a good target to try to get somebody information for that game.
Brian.
He's asking what kind of equipment you would need if you were just getting started reviewing games online.
I'm going to direct this at Susan because this got asked last year, and she had a really honest and good answer. So, Susan, if you don't mind.
I look at the setup that Twist Gaming has, and it's so fancy and impressive, and I'm envious of it. I started doing content almost 5 years ago with my laptop. I'm done. So, and in point of fact, I mean, you could definitely argue about the quality of my content today, and I'm totally open to that feedback, but for my video segments, I still use my laptop's built-in web camera to this day. I did invest in a microphone and some lighting. So if you're doing audio, the most important thing that you can do is try to have a nice quiet space with a little bit of sound baffling to reduce echo, and a decent quality microphone. The great thing is decent quality microphones are very inexpensive relative to other equipment you can buy. And if you're doing video content, audio is more important than video quality, and that's a big secret. And the way that you up your video quality is not necessarily very expensive video cameras, and feel free to disagree with me, people who produce better quality content than I have, but it's lighting. So I would invest in lighting before I would invest in cameras if I'm doing video, and I would invest in audio mics before I would invest in anything else for any kind of equipment. You can start very bare bones, and in fact, I recommend if you're interested in trying to produce content, start with what you have as much as you can, because it's a lot of work. And if you end up not liking it, but you've already invested $500, $1,000, $2,500 in a bunch of equipment for something that you don't enjoy, that's money you could have spent on games that you love.
I do want to pick up from that question, and thank you so much for the compliment. But we started with a webcam and a laptop. Fortunately, my counterparts, Matt and Josh, are both engineers, computer engineers and mechanical engineers. So they get to make a lot of the cool, fun stuff. But our very first BGG Con, I went around doing interviews on a cell phone, on a stick, with a mic. So sometimes it's not necessarily, we try to get the good lighting, and there are certain things that you definitely look for. But I think good quality content really supersedes if the image is a little grainy. And with us doing a lot of live streaming, we run into every audio and video and lighting issue that you could possibly think of. But if you've got something that's engaging and interesting to watch, people will watch it.
I do want to agree with Suze though, because if you have bad audio on videos, people will stop watching it quickly if it's scratchy or poppy or anything like that. So if that's not, at least to a decent quality, focus on that first.
And lighting, but very inexpensively. You can get started very, very inexpensively. You can spend a lot of time editing, and everybody needs editing. I think everyone.
There's a reason why podcasts are a thing with good audio and silent video reviews are not a thing.
Robert.
We have a couple of questions here from the
All right.
comments. With so many games coming out each year, how do you prioritize which ones you want to review?
Well, we know how Robert does it. He picks the ones he hates. Tries to find the biggest flaming bag of poo that he can. Crystal.
So for me, I've only been in board game media officially for a couple of years now, and really I've, for the most part, not been getting review copies of games. So most of the things that I review are the games that I'm already interested in and want to purchase for myself. So if I'm already interested in a thing and I've bought it and I play it and I like it, then I'm likely to review it. And that's where most of my, the stuff that I talk about in all of my content comes from. I've started getting a few games now. Anyone who watches Dice Tower tonight knows that I have to play some less than awesome games. I'll be playing some with Tom later during the convention, in fact. So anyone who wants to play Timberman, please feel free to come join us for that. But it's, I think it's hard to prioritize because there's so much. You want to play all the new hot games, but there isn't enough time or money really to do all of that. So for me, it's, does this game have theme or mechanics that I'm interested in already? And then I'll look into it a little deeper and see if it's something that I want to cover more extensively.
And Brad, you kind of voiced that as well, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You have so many games that are coming out every year. I basically just go make a list of all the ones that I want to try and just slowly try and work through that list. I'm not going to be able to play them all because I'm not rich. Games are expensive, but you really just kind of have to focus on what your niche is, and I like games. I like to play games that I'll enjoy, so I focus more on that.
How we doing over there? Anybody else on the internets?
Yes, we have another question. What game hits your table most often?
Ooh, let's get Tiffany on this one.
So this is only because I'm a huge nerd. It's got to be Gloomhaven because we meet regularly because it's a campaign game and there's well over 100 hours, so you have to. So yeah, it's definitely Gloomhaven, and I'm a huge fangirl for that one.
I'm so jealous.
Oh, you can come play. Come on.
We have a group, we just don't get to play very often.
Oh, see, it's on my calendar. Like I don't do any Thursday nights, every other Thursday night. No.
I'm actually interested, Suze.
For me, typically, so for those of you who don't know, I do a podcast, and I also do some video content, and it kind of necessitates a certain volume of plays, so I tend to have to play a lot of different kinds of games, so getting repeat plays is pretty challenging with time limitations. So the games that get to my table most often are roll and write games, because they make great fillers, and I love them, my group loves them, so games like Quinto or Welcome to, those tend to, like I've played Metro X a dozen times now. It's the nature of the type of game as much as anything else.
And
I kind of at the same point with when you're doing reviewing. So I'm a mom, I run a Cub Scout group, I've got 2 kids in activities, and I have a full-time job. And then when I fit in my free time, I do board game reviewing. So the free time outside of that is few and far between, but I love being able to bring out games with my kids. So one of the games we most recently brought out was the Unlock series. And before that, we did Thanos Rising. It was a fantastic game. And before that was Approaching Dawn: The Witching Hour. I like games that have a little bit of meat to it that I can still share with my kids that have some sort of a story to it. I enjoy, cooperative games, things that I can turn into family time.
Approaching Dawn, Witching Hour was your game of the year?
It was our 2017 game of the year. So we all looked at all the games that we had reviewed for 2017 and independently decided which game we enjoyed the most. I was very vocal about enjoying this game, and I was surprised to find out that Matt and Josh also came back independently, and that was their top 1 and 2 games.
It was our co-op of the year too. By the way,
Fantastic
you
game.
guys should find that game here at the Con and play. It's absolutely fantastic. Robert.
So same thing there. As a reviewer, it's very hard. Once the game has moved, I've already put out the review. It doesn't really get to my table again for quite a while. I would say as far as games that do get to my table, I would just say Feld and leave it at that. Like, those are the only games that I get to pull out with my regular group. So, but it's hard to get. It's hard to circle back to a game once I move past the review.
Crystal, let me ask you a different question. What can publishers do to support content creators?
I think engagement on social media is really important. I think publishers are getting better at this now, but I think in the past a lot of publishers hadn't really explored social media as much as maybe they should have, or they hadn't put time and resources into those. And I think if publishers support content creators, then content creators are going to be more likely to seek out things from publishers, because, if I know that I put out a review from a game from X company, and X company is always retweeting when I put something out, then it might be stuck in my head a little more. Oh, maybe I want to see their next game, because if I know that they're going to help me boost my stuff while I'm helping boost theirs, it's a mutual beneficial relationship for everybody involved. So I think social media is really big, and honestly, I think reaching out to content creators and not just, obviously there's very large, well-known content creators that have been around for a long time, but I think if publishers are willing to reach out to smaller, more independent content creators, especially more diverse ones, I think you can potentially end up with a wider breadth of opinions in reviews, and I think that it will give more people exposure to your games, because if you're always going to the same big name content creators, then you're potentially limiting your audience. You might think that a smaller content creator won't help, but they might have a completely independent audience from those other larger channels, and you're just gonna get more diverse opinions about your games, and I think that's what a publisher ideally should be looking for, because what if that big name person doesn't like your game? So I think those are both important things for publishers to do.
That was very well said, thank you. Brian, you have a question?
We do have a question from the audience.
Yeah, for those who do videos, video editing is a really tough task. Do you guys have any tips or tricks for those of us who are trying to learn how to use the video tools?
I personally could go aside and talk to you for hours and hours and hours about how much I hate it and how much I hate Adobe Premiere, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this to Robert because he loves Premiere. It keeps crashing on
I
mine.
didn't hear the question.
Any tips for video editing?
Use Premiere.
I mean, really, there's a lot of resources. I think now it's easier than ever to get into video editing because there are a lot of both free and paid resources to learn how to do video editing. Like, you can find free tutorials on YouTube, and then there's paid sources like lynda.com, which I think is now changed to LinkedIn Learning. You can pay by the month and find tutorials about just about everything, and I think looking into resources like that are a good way to self-teach for video editing or any other kind of stuff. One of my majors in college was mass communications, and I did a lot of video editing, and then didn't do any for 10 years, and when I got back into it, I was like, oh, I have to start over. Like, I have to start from scratch. Like, I didn't remember almost anything because the programs have changed so much and everything else, so I had to kind of reteach myself, and I'm still doing that. So we'll see. Hopefully my video content will improve as time goes on.
But as Crystal said, YouTube is your best friend. You can find anything. I mean, whether you're using PowerDirector or you're using Adobe or you're using any number of other video editors, there's lots and lots of anything you're looking for. You can find on YouTube. You just have to be patient. It just takes a little time.
Right. There's benefit in just taking a quick online course. For the first good year that I did editing, I was in Final Cut because it's what I was familiar with, but eventually I felt limited in it. And the first time I mean, now I say use Premiere, like that's my answer to everything. But the first time I opened Premiere, I just stood there and went, nope, and just closed it. And I didn't pick it back up for 2 months. And in fact, there's a couple of people on this panel and Mandy out there who just kept harping, telling you're good at once you get it. And I invested, I did a lynda.com course, I did just a couple of YouTubes, and I would just do it for a couple hours in the evening, just editing along with it. And eventually now I feel more comfortable in that than I ever did even in Final Cut. Beyond that, it's important to just be organized. Like, that's the most important thing before you start editing. Make sure you have everything you need organized. That is super important.
And Premiere is pretty much what you have to use if you're using 4K. If you're using 4K, if you're shooting 4K, you're gonna have to use Premiere.
Right.
Brian, real quick, how are we doing on time?
15 more minutes.
All right, and you have a question?
Yes, we have another one from the internet. Assuming that the current rate of new games and publishers continues to increase, where do you think the game industry will be in the next few years, and how will this affect game reviewing?
Oh, there's a couple of people here, but I'm gonna start with Corey.
Where would it be? I have no idea. Hopefully just bigger and better. I mean, I love that it's growing. It's something I jumped into a couple of years ago. It's just amazing. I've watched a lot of kids grow up and in the board games and card games, and their minds are just amazing. And I think that's the board game industry is exactly what we need for the young adults to get them to expand their minds and continue to grow with for the world, to be upstanding citizens.
And engage on a social level.
Exactly.
That was very well said. Thank you, Corey. Brad.
Where do I think this industry will be in a couple of years?
And the state of reviewing, obviously.
So there's going to be more and more people that are going to be playing games, right? And that's going to have more and more people wanting to produce content, naturally. And I think we're going to see a continued growth in the amount of people that are subscribing and following content of that sort. So you're going to see sort of a swell in your bigger reviewers, content creators, and that should kind of raise the tides. With more people into the hobby, you'll have more people looking out for new content and things like that. So overall, I think it's going to be a pretty big boom still. I think we're still in the growth phase of the board game hobby. I feel like we got a lot of games coming out every year. There was tons last year, so it's going to be pretty busy.
And there's more and more reviewers every single day. So if you're thinking about getting into this, probably now's the time. I have a hot button question. So this is going to be exciting for all of you. I'm going to start with Tiffany. Yeah. Do you owe it to your audience to moderate your public behavior, swearing, drinking, smiling, more so than a person who does not create content?
So, that's a really great question. I think to a certain extent, yes. I think that when you put yourself in the spotlight, and when you are asking for people to follow you and observe you and seek you out, I think that you need to hold yourself to a certain standard, and you need to be understanding that you're going to get attention, and that you want that to be a positive experience for the people that you're working with and you're working for. And I think that I would be very upset if I was out and and I was just in the game room playing a game, and some people that had watched some of my videos overheard me say something that really upset them or hurt them. I would be devastated to know that I did that, and I would hope that they would tell me, and so I could apologize. Just throwing that out there.
But it's bound to happen.
I say a lot of stuff, guys. It's not great. So I think we do have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, because you don't ever want to ostracize people or push them away, but while still being authentic to yourself. Like, I'm not going to change who I am so that other people can digest me a little bit better, but I will be respectful in my communications.
That's an awesome answer. Suze, would you like to add a little frosting to that?
The reality is that in the age of the internet, everything lives forever. Everything can grow beyond the scale of what was originally intended or the moment itself. And I think it's unreasonable to hold individuals who you see in a sphere, whether it's an athlete or an actor or whatever, to a certain, like, it's all about your expectations. So do I feel like I need to moderate my behavior or what have you in public because I create content? I personally feel that way. Do I think that I should have to feel that way? I don't. Because we're all human, we all have our moments, so if that happens, it's likely an anomaly and stuff happens. And so it's great that you're inviting people to give you that feedback, and I think that that's a very important part of the cycle. The thing is that it depends on what you want your audience to be and what you view your impact to the hobby or to the industry that you are trying to influence. By being a content creator, you are saying that you want to be an influencer. Otherwise, you can say, I just want to do it for myself, and that's fine. And then you owe nothing to anybody. But if you're trying to be an influencer, if you're trying to contribute to the overall culture and growth and health, then it's up to you to determine what your personal responsibility is. Now, maybe you feel that responsibility, but others might not. And I think that really ultimately comes down to what do you want your contribution to be and what do you want your audience to be. So there are content creators that they're go-lucky. They drink during the reviews and they have a certain energy and they swear, and that's the audience that they then cultivate, and that's totally fine for them. That's what they want, and they should own that. Whereas obviously, I produce content for the Dice Tower, and we try to cultivate a slightly different thing. We try to be very family-oriented, and we try not to swear and things like that, and that's our choice. So if I go beyond that and break that trust with people, what does that do to my credibility and my value? Does it damage it? I don't know. I think it really depends on the situation. I ultimately actually don't believe people should have to. It's your choice on whether or not you want to or not, but you just have to be aware of the potential impact, the ramifications, and the consequences. You can do whatever you want. There's always consequences, and it's just whether or not those are consequences you want to handle or not.
That's an outstanding answer, both of you. Thank you very, very much. Brian, do we have any more questions, and how are we doing on time?
We have about 7 more minutes, I believe.
All right.
And we do have another one. It's kind of a follow-up to the previous question about what game hits your table regularly. But this time, what pre-21st century game hits your table most often?
I'm going to get a list of pre-21st century games for the panel, please.
Avalon Hill's Advanced Civilization.
I mean, obviously, Heartthrob.
Oh.
I have a copy with me if anyone wants to play. Don't worry.
You and me later tonight.
I would love to stream that. Oh, can we go on? Can we all go on Twist later and stream that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They have a nice room. It's very
Yes,
percolating.
the Antigua one will be there playing Heartthrob.
All right, so I have a question I'm going to ask every member of the panel. So I'm going to hit Brad first, so everyone else is going to have more time to cultivate their answer. I'm sorry, Brad. What are some of the most uplifting experiences you've had during your media career?
Sure. So, as a podcaster, Amanda and I's faces aren't out there, right? So you'll hear us and things like that. You may see a picture here and there on social media. You can follow us, it's whatever. But when someone comes up to you and actually recognizes you in public, it's kind of a rush feeling, and it's just so cool when someone's like, hey, I know you from this. And even when it's a designer that made the game and you don't realize that's the designer. It's just such a cool feeling meeting so many wonderful people, especially in this hobby. Everyone is just so nice, so friendly, and being a part of that community has just been such a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much. Anne.
So I don't want to go maybe too far into the subject, but I have something that I'm super passionate about. I'm so excited that we got to answer this question. So in Twitch, you have things called Twitch teams, so it's various different Twitch streamers who all work collaboratively. And we're fortunate enough to work with a group called Saving Throw Show, run by a gentleman named Don Zook. And last year, I got the opportunity to moderate a panel at Gen Con about women in gaming. And it was so cool to be able to talk to, like it was like 9 women I had on the panel, and ask them all these really great questions. And I get to do it again this year at Gen Con. And, you know, growing up, I was very much so into video games and Star Wars and like a nerdy girl, and my mom plays video games too. So for me, having somebody to look up to, or a woman, this is normal, this is my normal. And as I've gotten more into this industry, I realized that maybe that's not the same for everybody else. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity to have collaborated in putting together a panel about business. Just the focus is, what is it, the business side of tabletop gaming, and have it being populated with some really amazing women in the industry to kind of give a role model or somebody to like look up to, and for other people who may not have had what I was fortunate enough to have.
That was a fantastic panel, by the way. You did a great job. Tiffany.
Okay, so I'm just sure her answer was too good, and I think that this is not a fair situation. I have to say, this is a little bit of a cop-out, but I think the best part, really, that was the question, what's the most heartwarming or uplifting part of the process? And really, for me, it's getting to spend the time with my friends while we're making the content, getting to enjoy that, getting to reach out to new people and making new friendships within the industry. I think that's the best part for me. You can't really get any better than that. And then getting to share that content and getting feedback. And, you know, like, oh my gosh, I saw that, the video that you posted, and it's like, hey, that's like, oh my gosh, I love my friends. It's a wonderful feeling. So it's just the connections that you get to build with the new people, with, people that you've previously known. That social aspect, I think, is unbeatable.
It's a pretty good follow-up, by the way.
Definitely good. Thanks.
Susan?
Really similar to what Ann was saying. When I started making content, there were very, very few people, if any, that looked like me making board game content. And I've been a gamer for over 20 years, starting back in '94. And so what's been most uplifting to me is I've had people come up to me and say that they appreciated feeling represented in the content where they previously hadn't felt represented. And that is a huge motivator and why I even started making board game content in the first place. I knew that there were gamers that looked like me, that sounded like me, but I wasn't seeing them out there, and I felt like that was a gap that needed to be closed. And to have that validated in feedback and to have people come back and say it did matter to them or did impact them in a positive way, it's incredibly heartwarming and uplifting.
Thank you very much. That's an awesome answer as well. Crystal.
I would say my answer is similar to Sue's. Feedback from the people who consume my content is the most meaningful thing to me, and that doesn't matter whether they are doing it publicly via like a tweet on Twitter, or whether they're privately messaging, or whether they're leaving a review on a podcast platform. Getting feedback is one of the most meaningful things for me, because it proves that there's a reason behind what I'm doing. Because like when we started the podcast, we weren't looking to do anything specific with it other than put out some content. When we started Board Game Blitz, there were no board game podcasts being hosted entirely by women, not one. And that was only 2 years and 2 months ago. And now there's a whole bunch, and that's one of the most exciting things, I think, is kind of like Sue said, I saw that there were no podcasts hosted just by women, and I said, rather than complaining about it, I'm going to do something about it. And I think for people out in the audience, if you see a gap in content, whether it's in video or audio or written content's really important too. If you see something that isn't being done, like, yes, you can complain about it, but maybe you can also do something about it. And hearing that what we're doing means something to somebody, whether that's we reviewed a game they love, or whether we're representing a demographic that's less represented, or anything, like, that's what impacts me the most. Also, the first time somebody recognized me by my voice kind of threw me for a loop, because that was weird.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Corey?
What was uplifting for me is, of course, I designed a game and people come up and say, oh, I really liked it or whatever. I could never do that. And for me, what's uplifting is, saying yes, you can, and giving them the tips and the motivation to do it and how they can go about it, and bringing them in and say, hey, we get together and we do these things. You can always come and join us. And for me, it's about inspiring others to do, what we can do. And I feel like if everybody wanted to do something, they should just go out and get it. Let's achieve your dreams.
And a side note to that, anyone can do what I do. Seriously, doesn't take any skill at all.
It's a lot of practice.
Anybody can walk in and fill my shoes in a second.
What
Rob?
size shoes you wear? We gotta trade shoes.
I think your feet are bigger than mine. Robert?
Again, a lot of the same things have been said, but for me, one of the most uplifting things is the fact that, so naturally, this was something we were going to talk on earlier, but I'm naturally kind of an introvert. I don't put myself out there very often. And one thing, board gaming and then moving into the content creation sphere has allowed me to put myself out there more and interact with more people. And it's constantly forced me to come out of my shell. And that's my general thing that has uplifted. So it's talking to just normal folks out there who are playing games, and they're like, I found this game that I really liked. I saw your review, and I hadn't even put that under my radar. But I do have something that happened 2 days ago that was kind of phenomenal for me. Is I had a family member who I hadn't spoken to in quite a long time. We've just completely lost touch. And they messaged me out of the blue, and they're like, hey, I just ran into one of your reviews. I didn't know you were doing these. I just happened to be looking for a review for a friend of mine asking about a game. And that reopened a dialogue with us, and that was pretty darn incredible. So that is now my pinnacle moment for me right now.
That's awesome. I want to say thank you to, we're out of time. We really need to get going. Eric Long's about to take over here and show us how it's done. But I want to thank all of you for coming. I really, really appreciate it. And I would like you, if you would, put your hands together for this amazing panel.
Brian for putting this awesome thing together.
Thank you.
Get Brian, go get Brian.
Yes, thanks to Brian.
And if somebody does have questions about wanting to get into this, and especially if you're in the Orlando area and you would like to, and you didn't get your question now, please feel free to contact either Brian or myself. And if you're in the Orlando area, we'd love to have you, whoever you are, on the show. If you got to try it out, see how you feel, see how you like it.
And if you don't like them, I'm in Orlando too.
And if you're in Las Vegas, come see me.
I think we all just got invited to Vegas.
Yeah.